Hi, good morning. Picasso said, "Every child is an artist." And isn't that wonderful? Because I believe that art has the power to heal illness and depression, to unite where there is division, and to call us forward to be the best in humanity that we can be. And I believe that writing and story in particular has the power to heal and transform. And I believe this because a number of years ago, a single book saved my life. I'll get to that. Picasso said every child is an artist, but that's not the message that all of us hear. In fact, many of us are told from early on by teachers or parents or society that art, talent, genius is reserved for a special few, and that something in our abilities or capabilities or background or education isn't quite enough. I wanted to be a writer from when I was really small. I started filling books of poetry and drawings when I was 5 years old. I was the kid that read 100 books every year in the school's readathon. I wanted to be a writer. And I knew from reading all these books and watching movies that the way you knew you were destined to be a writer is that a teacher would take you aside at some point and tell you you were special, and would feed you books and give you writing assignments, and that's how you knew. You've seen this, right? This narrative. So I got really excited because when I reached high school, the AP English teacher was the first published author I would meet. He'd published several books, he had a column in the newspaper, and I knew this was going to be my moment right here in Northern Virginia. I remember standing in that second-story east-facing classroom with the afternoon sun pouring in, and our teachers pacing the front of the room, holding the papers, our first writing assignments ready to give back. And he said, "We have some real writers in this room, some real talent." I leaned forward, holding my breath, and he said, "Mark, Anthony, Jason, great job." Handed back the papers. I stood there hovering, kind of out of my body, realizing my name had not been called. And I had no idea then, I had no idea what it really takes to say yes to an artistic calling, say yes to any kind of vision of genius. I was letting someone outside myself, an authority figure, decide if I was worthy, even allowed to pursue this dream. And the answer seemed to be no. So I went to college and I studied other people's writing and became an English major. But I kept writing in secret. And I remember coming home for Christmas break, my senior year of college, and announcing to my parents, "I'm going to London and becoming a writer. This is my vision." And my parents very understandably said, "You're going to get a job." I mean, the path of the artist, of the visionary, of the innovator very seldom makes other people comfortable or makes us comfortable. And that's amazing in reality because that's discomfort. That out of the comfort is where the best genius ideas come from. But I didn't know that yet. I didn't understand that I was still looking to someone else to tell me if I was allowed, if I was worthy, if I was capable. My parents weren't trying to squash my dreams. We had no professional artists in my family, no entrepreneurs. Artist meant unemployed, meant broke, meant not okay. And so I went and got a job at an advertising agency, kind of creative adjacent. And this job on paper looked like it would be wonderful. Lots of young, smart, creative people, amazing opportunities. But it turned out to be a really toxic environment. Every day for almost 3 years at that job, I experienced some kind of sexual harassment, being accosted, and then ultimately attacked. And I began to despair. And the way that I dealt with this despair was to starve myself, to binge, to purge, to try to take away the pain. Of course, it didn't work. And I began to die a little bit inside every day. Well, I was traveling a lot for this job, and one day I'm flying back from Boston to Chicago where I lived, and I was late to the airport. And I could hear my flight down the corridor being called, like, "American, flight 252 to Chicago." But I see a bookstore. I see a bookstore, and bookstore to me, that dream of writing had never really gone away, and bookstore was oasis. It was sanctuary. I ran in, I didn't have time to read the back of the jackets. I grabbed a book and I began to read on the flight home. I read the entire way home. I read in the taxi. I stayed up all night clutching that book, reading that book, holding, and what I'd read was my story. The details were different, the writer's background was different to mine, but it was a story of a woman who'd experienced trauma and developed a life-threatening eating disorder as a result. And most important, I read what she did to get well. I vowed holding that book that night that I was going to get help the next day, and I did. And that one decision, that one moment, reading that one book, changed the course of the rest of my life. In fact, I believe it saved my life. Reading that book let me leave that abusive job. I restored my health, and that desire to write came back with ferocity. And this time, I still didn't think I was good enough. I still didn't think I would succeed. But I learned the first of the 3 steps I'm sharing today of yesing that artistic vision. Yesing yourself. I wasn't looking outside me anymore. I just said, I'm going to do it. That's a decision. But then there's the next step I discovered, right? Yesing the vision. Well, for me, that meant getting to work because I'd never taken any creative writing classes. I'd never studied the craft. And so I got to take classes online and start a daily writing practice and immerse myself in the power of story. The ripple effects of reading that one book continued, and this decision to commit to myself, to yes myself, yes the vision, led to me eventually, not right away, getting a book deal and getting an agent and getting on Oprah and being published in the New York Times and all of these things that were fantasies and would have remained fantasies if I had not read that one book, said yes to myself, yes to the vision. Even more exciting than all of these things was that it called forth a new vision. I made another vow that I was going to devote my life to anyone else who had that knowing inside them, that they have a story or a message to share. And I got to go back to all those places where I had taken writing classes, and I've taught in 3rd grade classrooms all the way up to high schools, universities, writing centers, conferences around the world, and then been a conduit for the stories, for the ripple effects, for the people that I get to serve, my students and my clients. And they are out receiving those experiences of changing, of saving lives through story. This is the 3rd step. Yes, self, yes, the vision, and then share what we've learned with the community in the Shero's journey. It's bringing it back to the tribe. We share the vision. And all of these books and stories got to come into the world. But it wasn't easy for anyone else, right? Maybe one of you has that feeling of there's a book in you, a story in you. But my students come to me and my clients come to me and say, who am I to write a book? Who am I to get on a stage? We doubt ourselves. We doubt our own worth. But I believe there's a call and response in the universe. That if there is something coming up in you, an idea that you know you need to share, it's because someone out there, or maybe thousands of someone's, need that message. Flannery O'Connor says that if you've survived childhood, you have enough material to last a lifetime. So any of you here today over 12, all of you emerging leaders, you've got everything you need to start making that impact, creating those ripple effects, changing lives with story. But my clients say, great, I can yes myself, but in terms of yesing the vision, what do I talk about? Well, I have my students and clients create a story bank. You can start thinking of the little mundane daily ahas and illuminations that you experience, the magic like we just heard about, up to the really big rock bottom moments and traumas and great triumphs and successes. All of those are stories that can change lives. So you can keep a notes file on your phone, keep a list in your journal, and start mining your life for the stories that you're here to share. We all have probably favorite writers. Maybe there's a book that's changed your life. And if you close your eyes right now, if we close our eyes and imagine one of those great leaders or innovators or writers, call them to mind. See, the thing is, a lot of my clients do what I did and say, but those people are all famous, they're powerful. I've gotten to meet some of these people, and you know what? Not a single one of them said, oh, you know what, I knew I wanted to do this and it was super easy and everyone told me I was great and I knew I was great and it was a piece of cake. Not one. What they share is they went through that same fire and they had to find a way to yes themselves and yes the vision, and that they shared what they learned back with the community. The only difference between you and that writer or that innovator or that scientist that you admire so much is that they took these 3 steps. They said yes to the vision, yes to themselves, and they shared what they learned. I shared earlier, of course, so much about the book that saved my life. But in this incredible journey that I've been on about story, I found out that a book can also help create a life. My first book is the story of the 7-year journey my husband and I took to try to have our child, to start a family. It included 6 rounds of IVF, miscarriage, stillborn twins that we lost late in a pregnancy. And then it included, at the age of 59, my mother taking a very path less traveled course and offering to be our gestational carrier. And that is how our son miraculously came into the world. Since sharing that story, we have received hundreds, maybe even thousands of emails and letters from people saying they'd given up hope. They thought there wasn't a way, but hearing a new story opened up doors, ideas. There have been cousin surrogacies, sister surrogacies, mother-in-law surrogacies, and just this week, another amazing life came into the world through her grandmother. What I'm inviting you to do today is to share a story. Sometime in the next 24 hours, sit down across from another person, go live on your Instagram feed or your Facebook Live, write a blog post, and if you don't have a blog, join someone else's. Your story matters. In the next 24 hours, share something that's inside you that you know needs to come out. And I believe this is how we will heal ourselves, create unity in a world divided, and change our world. Thank you.